I'd get a bodyguard, too. It's a warm and funny story of survival. My Bodyguard, right after the news. CBS, we've got the touch.
Why did Captain Jeffrey McDonald kill his wife and children? He says he didn't. A jury says he did. 60 Minutes starts a new season Sunday on CBS.
Hi, I'm Dick Clark, here with the host of TV's hottest new game show, Press Your Luck, where you can win a bundle or lose your shirt, starring the exciting, talented personality, the Whammy. Not to be confused with your personal host, Peter Tamarkin.
Thanks, Dick. Join me
And the Whammy
on Press Your Luck, weekdays premiering September 19th.
This is CBS.
A drought of dollars has forced the closing of a rural Iowa bank. Governor Perpich is home tonight, hoping his overseas trip will lead to jobs in Minnesota. And Minot, Wisconsin, buried one of its own today, Marine Randy Clark, who was killed in Beirut. The details coming up on tonight's 10 p.m. report.
When your dental expenses are covered by Delta Dental, you'll probably never again bite off more than you can chew.
Norwest banks mean different things to different customers.
Norwest is banking and the whole
care about you because they take the time to talk with you. The commercial banking department is fantastic.
So it's good to be able to cash a check or to use an instant cash machine in whatever city I happen to be in.
Banking and a whole lot more at Norwest. And that it is true. It is true.
Norwest is banking and a whole lot more.
Every year about this time, something wonderful happens. Kids everywhere find themselves back at school. McDonald's would like to make the occasion even happier. With McDonald Land character pens. There are 5 McDonald Land characters, and you can collect a different one each week for only 59 cents with any purchase. Pen Friends, now at participating McDonald's. Even school has its bright side.
Well, maybe.
WCCO Television, Minneapolis, St. Paul. From the new WCCO Television Communications Center in the Twin Cities, this is the 10 p.m. report. With Dave Moore, Pat Miles, Skip Loescher, Mike Fairborn, and Mark Rosen.
Good evening, everyone. The nation's economy is heating up, in the jargon of The Economist. But from Silver Bay, Minnesota to Washington, D.C., some cold reminders of the recent recession linger on. In Iowa, the business climate and the climate have teamed up in one particularly painful episode. It's the story of the Exchange Bank of Bloomfield, Iowa. A reliable institution for 120 years, it was closed by state banking examiners today. Only a note greeted its customers. The bank apparently loaned out too much money and was caught in a dollar drought caused by the dry conditions that withered Iowa crops. Because it is a private and therefore uninsured institution, many depositors in the town will lose virtually all the money they were trying to save. Pat?
And Dave, Reserve Mining Company of Silver Bay, Minnesota has some bad news for its 2,300 laid-off employees. The taconite mining operation will remain shut down now and indefinitely. Reserve says weak demand for taconite makes it impossible to recall any of the laid-off workers. Mike Walsher went to Silver Bay to find out how people are coping.
Reserve had hoped to resume taconite operations in October. Instead, it now says it may lay off more of the few people still working. At the job center in Silver Bay, only 7 or 8 people have gotten work in the past month.
If something comes up, like I say, if something comes up, I'll take it. If it doesn't, what choice do you have? You have to survive.
Scores of home are for sale, often at bargain basement prices, as people leave town. Business has been hurt, with nearly 80% of the residents here unemployed. At the county food shelf, donations are down sharply, while the number of families needing free food increased from 35 to 66 the past month.
You know, these people up here have been through a lot of tough times, and they're used to it. It's just getting tougher, that's all. Every blow is a little harder to take, I think.
Yeah.
The job service is urging people to retrain for careers with a future.
It's almost kind of sad, actually, because reserve is not something they should count on. It really isn't.
Reserve has 1.5 million tons of taconite in inventory, and while the demand for steel continues down, the company is not likely to increase its production anytime soon. With photographer Bill Kemplin, I'm Mike Walter, WCCO.
Technical difficulties there we apologize for. What has happened to Minnesota's steel industry could happen to other segments of the state's economy unless Minnesota sells itself. Well, that warning today from Governor Rudy Perpich as he returned to the state following 3 weeks of talking up Minnesota in Europe. The governor will report on his trade mission in a series of news conferences around the state tomorrow. But as he walked through Twin Cities International Airport this afternoon, the governor said his trip laid the groundwork. He said it is the basis of a new future for Minnesota's economy, even though he says the trip was too long and not exactly 100% successful.
It's the beginning, and I think it's, you know, we're definitely will become an international center before I leave office. And we will have many foreign companies will be here. But I'll be gone most of the time between now and Christmas. We have some firms that we're meeting on the East Coast and Pittsburgh, I think on the 22nd.
And you're not worried about your political opponents painting you as a globe-trotting governor?
No, no. Minnesota doesn't keep their governors very long. I'm going to do what I think is necessary.
The governor said he plans to rest right now and that he thinks his just completed trip made important gains in establishing Minnesota as an international trade partner. Dave?
The words from House Speaker Tip O'Neill. President Reagan's economic policy is, quote, certainly nothing to brag about. And O'Neill joined others today to change that. Skip?
David O'Neill and his Democratic colleagues from both houses of Congress today unveiled another emergency jobs bill. That measure would create 500,000 minimum wage jobs within 45 days of being signed into law. The cost of the Democratic measure, $3.5 billion.
Where are we going to get the money? Yesterday, we voted in the Senate for an $187 billion military bill. Somehow we find that there's money for everybody who has money, but no money for the unemployed.
The measure could come up for a vote in the House sometime next week. Senate Democrats have voted in caucus to try and force President Reagan to invoke the War Powers Act. That is, to force the president to declare that our Marines in Lebanon are in a combat zone and to ask Congress for permission to keep them there for more than 90 days. Enough Republicans are expected to join the Democrats to ensure their success. Meantime, the U.S. rushed more arms and ammunition to Lebanon today. That aid will be used to help the Lebanese army units battling these Druze-Muslim forces in the mountains surrounding Beirut. It is from these positions that the Druze have rained artillery shells on their enemies below. And Druze commanders say the only reason U.S. Marine positions have been hit is because they, the Druze, do not have sophisticated aiming equipment.
We did not give any order to shoot on the Marines, and we don't want to shoot on the Marines.
But our Marines don't like playing the role of sitting ducks.
Either take us home or turn us loose. That's all I got to say. I don't like sitting here being shot at.
But the Marines are pleased that their commanders can now call in airstrikes to help defend them.
About time we did something. Sit here getting shot at. They should have called in airstrikes a long time ago.
And today, members of Alpha Company, which has already lost 4 of its men to Druze artillery shells, began cutting more trees to build more bunkers to protect themselves in case more shells come their way. And Marine commanders say they hope not to be forced to call in those airstrikes to help protect their troops. David?
It was the same Alpha Company where Lance Corporal Randy Clark worked while he was stationed in Beirut. Today, the 19-year-old Marine was buried. Pat?
Dave, the 19-year-old graduated from the high school in Minong, Wisconsin. It was used to accommodate the crowd of mourners today, that gymnasium. Randy Clark is one of 4 U.S. Marines to die in fighting in Lebanon, and his funeral provided a time for Minong residents to question why he had to die. Caroline Lowe reports.
More than 1,000 people came to the gymnasium at Northwood High School to pay their final respects to Randy Clark. The loss of their friend and relative is even more painful as they struggle with questions about why the young Marine died.
We joined the Clark family in asking why. What are we there for? Peacekeeping is an easy answer. and it's not satisfactory.
Since last week, the residents of this tiny community have become increasingly skeptical about U.S. involvement in a country thousands of miles away. On Tuesday, 200 high school students sent letters to President Reagan, letters questioning U.S. foreign policy in the Mideast. Randy's father talked with the president on the phone last week about his questions concerning our presence in Lebanon. Jim Clark says he'd like to talk with Reagan again, this time in person.
I'd just like to sit down with the president. We'll take him right over to the park over there at that football field. It's meant so much to Randy. He don't need to bring a bunch of guards. He don't need to bring any script writers. As a father to another father, I would just like to have him here and answer these questions.
On Monday, the Clark family received a letter from Randy saying he was scared, but not to worry because he'd soon be coming home. The letter was written just days before Randy died. This afternoon, Randy was buried with full military honors in his hometown. With photographer Dave Cheney, Caroline Lowe, WCCO Television News, Minong, Wisconsin.
And Randy Clark was the first Minong native to die in the military in 25 years. Dave?
Tonight, royalty and commoners alike shared a cathedral in Monaco to take part in a mass marking the first anniversary of the death of Princess Grace. The solemn ceremony ended a day of memorials in Monte Carlo, Paris, and at Monaco's consulates around the world. Princess Grace died 1 year ago today when she suffered a stroke while driving along a mountain road.
It's the Runaround, a little dance made popular by so-called bargain building supply stores that make you run from one end of their warehouse to the other just to find what you need. When you get tired of the runaround, come to Knox. We have lower prices than those other guys. We also have the Knox Answer Booth to help you find what you want fast. Knox, good prices, good answers.
Save on Owens Corning fiberglass insulation during Knox Builder Days.
Terrific. Thank you. Let me tell you a couple things about the Star and Tribune. We're adding more world and national news, and we're adding more opinions and letters on the editorial page. Back in sports, 25% more features and scores. The whole paper reads quicker. It has more punch. At the Minneapolis Star and Tribune, we're not going to just promise you a better paper. We're going to deliver it every day.
The Minneapolis Star and Tribune. From now on, every edition's an extra.
Today, the National AFL-CIO placed the names of 5 corporations on its dishonor roll. Companies which the union cites as anti-union. Litton Industries, Procter & Gamble, Fabergé, Capital Cities Communication, and Indiana Desk. Some disquieting labor news here at home.
Well, depending on who you talk to, Dave, this could be good or bad news. Teachers in more than 80 school districts have filed intent to strike notices, but that number represents only 1/3 of the notices filed on the same date in 1981. And a spokesman for the Minnesota Education Association says a smaller number of filings may mean fewer strikes this year. The 80-some locals may now strike legally beginning September 26th. Each of the unions has asked for a state mediator. Nurses at the VA hospital in Minneapolis cannot go on strike, at least not legally, but that has not stopped them from picketing to protest what they consider to be life-threatening conditions at the hospital. Alan Cox is with us tonight for an update on that dispute. Alan?
Pat, the nurses have been saying that there are just not enough of them at the VA hospital. They say cutbacks in staffing and a pickup in patient admissions have led to several dangerous situations. The nurses refuse to discuss the specifics of those dangers with reporters, but they have been talking to hospital administrators. And at a meeting this afternoon, nurses discussed the boss's response. They found it lacking. And tonight, leaders of the nurses union announced a lobbying campaign.
Now, all that we can continue to do is give as safe patient care as we can and continue in our efforts to inform the public. We are going to continue meeting with veterans organizations and explain the problems to the veterans organizations in hopes that we can get support from them.
The union says the VA hospital is offering to add on only 10 nurses. The union thinks anything less than 50 or 60 would still threaten the health of patients. The acting hospital administrator was unavailable to us tonight, but administrators have said patient safety is being maintained.
Alan, since it is a VA hospital, what authority do the local administrators have to make these changes?
They apparently don't have a lot of budget authority, but they can restrict patient admissions in some cases, and that is one of the reasons that the nurses are trying to get up a lobbying campaign to get people to complain to their congressmen and senators.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. At Stillwater State Prison, a lockup continues tonight, and now authorities say they may charge as many as a dozen inmates in connection with the riot that took place there last Sunday. A prison spokesman says the charges could include rioting and inciting to riot. The incident at the prison resulted in $40,000 damage to Cell Hall B. A guard and 4 inmates were injured during that incident.
Tomorrow in Montreal, the 33 members of the United Nations International Civil Aviation Commission will convene an emergency session, presumably to consider a resolution condemning the Soviet attack on Korean Flight 007. The Soviet Union will be there. It will have a representative, but unlike the UN Security Council, no country is allowed a veto. So the Soviets are expected to use the session, probably as a forum, to excuse their action. Today, Switzerland joined that growing list of countries boycotting flights to Moscow. The list includes all NATO countries except France, Turkey, and Greece. But the Soviets retaliated on that score today. Skip?
David, Aeroflot is refusing to accept all tickets issued by U.S. airlines. That action left hundreds of tourists stranded in Moscow as they looked for alternative flights out of the Soviet Union. At the Kremlin today, Soviet leaders flatly rejected the idea of financially compensating relatives of victims aboard the downed Korean jetliner, and the Russians again claimed that plane was on a spy mission. Here in Washington, President Reagan again pledged to continue arms control talks with the Soviets, but he warned,
well, we can't permit such a regime to militarily dominate this planet. This incident should reaffirm our commitment and that of our allies to rebuild our defensive strength.
And on Capitol Hill, the House, which lost one of its own members when Korean Airlines Flight 7 was shot down, voted 416-0 to condemn the attack. And as our Jim Gately reports, the Senate is likely to follow suit.
The congressional resolution condemns the Soviets for their, quote, barbaric act, but does little else. In terms of sanctions against the Russians, penalties, in terms of hardships against the Russians, what have you done?
Well, against the Russian people, I suppose nothing.
But Senator Dave Durenberger says the president has turned world opinion against the Russians, and that's more important than the condemnation resolution. Others in Congress were more emotional.
Now, you can dress them up, you can put them before a camera, and you can have them sitting down talking about peaceful means, but you must keep in mind that you're dealing with murderers, thugs, and crooks.
In real terms, the congressional resolution does very little and perhaps nothing. The hope among many congressmen is that if the right opportunity comes along, then the president will enact meaningful sanctions against the Russians. Jim Gately, WCCO Television News, Washington.
The Senate is slated to vote on that condemnation resolution tomorrow. David?
The oldest form of protest in our country, at least the oldest form that has worked, was revived in Boston today, but 210 years later, it's not British tea that protesters are dumping into the harbor. That is Soviet vodka, folks, a dramatic demonstration designed to tell the rest of the world that until some public apology is forthcoming from Russia, no Russian vodka should be bought or drunk. They were drinking vodka in Boston tonight, but it wasn't the Russian brand. Whenever Mike Fairborn has come on to give us a 30-day forecast, how many of you have kept tab? How many of you written down to check the accuracy?
That's not fair.
Well, I know I have, and I trust you.
Okay, I'm glad you do, David. We put these out with a little tongue-in-cheek, of course, and sometimes they're pretty good, sometimes they're bad. We'll have to admit that, too. But it does give us some guidance, and if we believe it, and there's no reason why we shouldn't, it's as good a guess as any, we're in for a nice fall here over the upper Midwest. We're going to be just a little bit on the cool side, just slightly below normal. Our normal high drops from 70 down to 62, and our low from 49 to 40. And precipitation-wise, we normally get about 2.5 inches of precipitation, and we're going to be in the normal area, okay? A little bit above normal up to the northwest. We have been getting some rain, helping to add to that normal, though, since about 6 o'clock this afternoon. Some rain showers showing up to the southwest have been moving into the metropolitan area. There were a few sprinkles earlier in the day, but the real significant rain is just getting into us, and there's a lot more out there to the west. What we're saying is it's going to get wet here over the next 24, maybe even 36 hours. Why? Well, we have a little low pressure area that's developed out to the southwest, a very strong upper air disturbance moving through with it, triggering showers and maybe even an isolated thunderstorm or two along the leading edge of it. That low is going to track just south of Minnesota. As that does, it will draw some nice warm southerly winds up ahead of it. Won't quite make it us because the low is south of us, but that will trigger showers and thunderstorms, mainly thunderstorms to the south of us, with a lot of cloud cover over us and some fairly significant rainfall amounts. And possibly up to an inch, maybe even 2 in some places of Minnesota. For tomorrow, our temperatures will hover right around the 60-degree mark, 50s to the north, 70s, 80s, 90s to the south. It's going to be hot again in the desert southwest. They've been above 100 degrees now for about the last 5-6 days. It's been very warm down there. Right today we had 65 degrees. No rainfall officially at the airport as of 6 o'clock. We have had rain now moving into the Twin Cities. Since then, 46 for an overnight low last night. Both the high and the low below normal. 56 right now. Humidity 69%, southeast winds at 93018 and rising on the barometer. Well, we've already given away the forecast. It's going to be rainy tonight, periods of it. We'll have winds out of the southeast at 10 to 15 miles an hour, a low of 53 degrees. Tomorrow we will have also periods of rain, chance of thunderstorms, southeast 15 to 25, a little bit on the raw side, only making it up to about 60 degrees for a high. And for tomorrow night and on into Friday, rain, windy, cool, just a little bit of partial clearing, maybe a little bit of sunshine on Friday, but mostly cloudy. 59 for a high, for a 45 overnight low tomorrow night. We'll have a chance of some showers again return for part of the weekend, and it's going to stay on the cool side. The highest 70 out of the next 5 days, and 61 will be the lowest high. David?
Oh, that was not good. But,
well,
but you do it well.
Autumn rains.
We'll be back with more of the 10 p.m. report in just a moment.
Take your average, everyday office.
Morning.
Add just 1 cup and
Ooh, where'd he get that suit?
Koppenheimer, where it doesn't cost a lot to fill your cup, 'cause we make them in our own factory. Take a rather dull party. Add just 1 cup.
Happy birthday.
And
Ooh, where'd you get that suit?
Koppenheimer, where you get that suit, sport coat and slacks, for less.
McNugget Mania sweeps the nation. When McDonald's introduced Chicken McNuggets, they had no idea the nation would respond with a single word. Now McDonald's responds, introducing 2 new sizes, the Big McNugget 9 size and the even bigger 20 McNugget size. Now Chicken McNuggets come in 3 sizes.
We shall eat McNuggets on the beaches. We shall eat them in our homes. We shall eat them at McDonald's.
McNuggets, McDonald's and you.
Oh, come on, why don't you frisk me?
It's not necessary. I can see you have nothing.
Tonight at 10:30 on WCCO television.
Sunday night at 10:30, the Bud Grant Report features the Vikings home opener against the San Francisco 49ers. This is Mark Rosen. Coach Grant will review the highlights from Thursday's game with San Francisco. We will also recap the other games from the Central Division. And on our Bud Grant Scrapbook feature, we will take another look at one of the most exciting games in Viking history. So be with us Sunday night at 10:30 for the Bud Grant Report here on WCCO television.
A rear-end collision between 2 freight trains proved fatal today for 2 crewmen near Sullivan, Indiana. It happened when a northbound train rammed the back end of another train that had been stalled on the tracks for over an hour. 3 engines of the second train ran over the caboose, crushing the men inside. 3 other people suffered minor injuries. 30 cars were derailed and blocked traffic throughout the area. And tonight, an investigation into what happened to cause the crash. Pat?
Dave, the parents of 2 young children are dead tonight after an apparent murder-suicide. Police say the bodies of Larry and Deborah Shirk were found just after midnight at their home in Oak Grove Township. Deborah Shirk died of multiple gunshot wounds, her husband by a single self-inflicted wound. The couple left behind a 10-year-old boy and a 3.5-year-old girl. The Southdale office of the F&M Marquette National Bank was robbed today, shortly before 2 o'clock this afternoon. The robber got away on foot with an undisclosed amount of cash. He is described as a white male in his late 20s to early 30s, about 5'10" to 6 feet, and 175 pounds, with an athletic build, black hair, and a mustache.
3 radicals who denounced their trial as a charade stand convicted of murder and robbery tonight in the bloody holdup of a Brinks armored car in 1981. The 3, Judith Clark, David Gilbert, and Kawazi Balagoon, were found guilty by a jury in Goshen, New York. All three contending that the robbery, which left 2 police officers and the guard dead, was a justified act in a war against U.S. imperialism. They now face a possible sentence of 25 years in prison. Skip?
David, the Alexander Haig I Am in Charge traveling trophy goes tonight to Israeli Deputy Prime Minister David Levy, who says he is now in charge of the Israeli government. Levy says Israeli law in effect made him acting prime minister after Menachem Begin became too ill to carry on. But other Israeli officials say Levy is full of hot air, that only the Israeli cabinet can name an acting prime minister. Begin, whose health is improving, is expected to submit his letter of resignation later this week. The Reverend Jesse Jackson, who put his foot in his mouth in the Netherlands yesterday, brought his black voter registration drive to a U.S. Army base in West Germany today. After a meeting with Queen Beatrice of the Netherlands yesterday, Jackson angered the Queen by telling reporters about her personal views on arms control. Today in Germany, Jackson confined his remarks to voting rights issues, and most of the black GIs he met there urged him to run for the Democratic presidential nomination. David?
Mark Rosen is up and running with tonight's sports scene in just a moment.
In 1949, WCCO television moved into the old Radio City Theater and began broadcasting. Now we're on the move again. It's here. The new WCCO Communication Center is now open. Tune in and you'll agree it's the best move we've ever made. WCCO television is on the move.
It may not be the kind of game you enjoy watching, but it was for the Twins, considering the opposition and its play of recent days, a magnificent victory for them tonight. Mark?
1-0, Dave, over the Chicago White Sox. That snaps the White Sox 8-game winning streak, and they did it in dramatic fashion. Rookie Tim Tuffle's bases-loaded hit in the bottom of the 9th inning was the only run scored tonight as the Twins delayed Chicago's march to the Western Division Championship. Now, here's what happened in the bottom of the 9th inning. Mickey Hatcher led off with a double to right center off starter and losing pitcher Britt Burns, who was coming off a 1-hit performance in 17 scoreless innings. Ingalls singled Hatcher to third. Bernansky was intentionally walked, but Tuffle, who has played in just 9 games with the Twins since being recalled from Toledo, laced a hit to right center. Hatcher scored the winning run from third base, and the Twins had reason to celebrate. Al Williams pitched a super ball game for Minnesota. He shut out the White Sox, although Ron Davis came on with 1 out in the 9th inning to get the last 2 Chicago outs, and Davis gets the victory. 1-0 for the Twins. Tomorrow night they host Toronto at the Dome. Well, it's official now. The Metrodome will be host to the 1985 Major League All-Star Baseball game. The date is not set. As always, it will be in mid-July. The game will mark the 20-year anniversary of the last time the Twins hosted an All-Star game. Of course, that was back at Met Stadium. But don't start calling the Twins for tickets just yet. It will be a while before they announce their All-Star ticket plan. Next year's All-Star game will be held in San Francisco. Well, let's check the scores. Tonight in the American League, Baltimore has shut out Boston by the score of 5-0. Elsewhere, Guidry won his 19th as the Yankees beat Milwaukee. Detroit shut out Cleveland by the score of 5-0. Elsewhere, Kansas City trailing and California scoreless in the third. Texas, Oakland also scoreless in the third. Seattle leading Toronto 2-1 in the third inning. In the National League, the Phils are taking over first place in the East. They beat Montreal twice tonight, 9-5 and 5-0. Pittsburgh's hung in there. They beat Chicago 6-3. Elsewhere was St. Louis over New York. Los Angeles beat Houston by the score of 4-2. And it was Cincinnati beating Atlanta 6-4. San Diego leading San Francisco 1-0 in the 4th inning of play. Well, how does Gopher coach Joe Salem feel about facing #1 rated Nebraska this Saturday? The game was scheduled 10 years ago, said Salem. If you had a choice today, you wouldn't do it. If the Gophers are to make a respectable showing against the Cornhuskers, they will need a big game out of running back Tony Hunter, who was such a question mark for the Gophers this year. He wasn't even listed in the team's media guide, but times have changed, as Tom Hanneman reports.
The past year can only be described as a roller coaster ride for Tony Hunter. Last fall, Hunter emerged as one of the Gophers' few bright spots, leading the team in rushing and touchdowns scored with efforts like this. In a season best forgotten, Tony Hunter was well worth remembering. But last spring, Hunter left the team, citing differences with the Gophers' new coaching staff. Tony later reconsidered and returned to the squad, but things slid downhill from there. Hunter was plagued by injury and illness this fall. He missed most of training camp and was dropped to the Gophers' 4th squad. But this time, Tony stuck things out.
It's very frustrating sitting on the bench, when the team is out on the field participating, and I want to be out there participating too. So I just had to take it in stride. Very happy now that I'm back, and I never wanted to leave, but like I said, it was an attitude conflict between me and the coaches, and I'm so glad that, I had a second chance.
Joe Salem is also glad. With the Gopher offense sputtering last Saturday against Rice, Salem turned to number 33 in the second half, and Hunter responded with a 73-yard performance. Half of those yards on the Gophers' game-winning drive.
Wanted to use him a little bit. When we weren't moving the ball very well, I probably went to him sooner than I had anticipated. But he came in and played, I think, up to his ability. He showed some toughness in the game, which was good to see. He got hit one time, so as hard as he's ever going to get hit, and he bounced right up and went back to the huddle. But we were happy to see the kind of game he had, and he'll get it going from this point on.
Hunter hasn't won the starting tailback position yet, but Joe Salem won't keep him on the bench against Nebraska.
Yeah, he's going to play. We got him on the run on the second team this week. He moved up 2 teams, but he'll be in there. Don't worry about that.
Tom Hanneman, WCCO Television Sports, reporting.
And Pat, experience won over technology today as Dennis Conner's yacht Liberty defeated Australia 2 in the opening race of America's Cup. 1-0 U.S. The next race is Thursday.
They had a big crowd on hand to watch that. Thank you, Mark. On tomorrow's assignment, Board Governor Rudy Perpich holds an 8 o'clock news conference to discuss his job-seeking efforts overseas, and the Minneapolis Police Department will offer a new 5th precinct, making it the largest police precinct in the state. Skip?
Pat, Democratic hopeful Walter Mondale will hold a question and answer session here in Washington tomorrow with business people. The session is entitled Out of Reaganomics. And in the Senate, debate continues over tomorrow's expected resolution condemning the Soviets for their downing of that civilian Korean jetliner. Good night, David.
Good night, Skip. Thank you. All over town, people have been stopping us on the street. How do you like your new building? How's it going over there? How do you like it, huh? Well, you know what it was like over there on 9th Street. It was terrible. Couldn't get the elevator when you needed it.
Hey, release that elevator!
Anyone over 5'4" qualified for a concussion. And as Karen Boris said the other night,
a fire inspector once came here to be interviewed and ended up writing a citation on the place.
Do we like it? You ask, do we like it? Are you kidding?
What's Michigan got for you this fall? Smooth casts, nice putts, and great returns. Incredible nightlife, beautiful twilights, and satisfied smiles. Twinkling cities, sparkling shores, sumptuous food, and flavorful wine. Cascading water, tumbling leaves, beckoning highways, and just rewards. So what are you waiting for? Call toll-free for a complimentary tour package and...
Your gas bill is trying to tell you something.
How to avoid estimated gas bills.
How to cut next January's heating bill.
What?
Answering your energy questions.
Tips for home insulating.
Where your energy dollars go.
Furnace and fireplace safety.
It's In Touch, the helpful newsletter that comes from Minigasco every month. It makes you wiser about the energy you buy because Minigasco cares.
So you're on the radio.
Yep.
But you don't talk much.
No.
You play country music.
Yep.
But you don't talk much.
No.
FM stereo.
Yep.
But you don't talk much.
No.
Could you give us a sample? Hey, that's pretty good.
More music, less bull. FM Country, K102.
WCCO Television, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Chair. You buy any Lazy Boy in the store, and Slumberland will give you a 12-inch black and white TV set free.
Slumberland's Lazy Boy start at just $219.99.
Quite a good price. Throw in a free TV, and I don't think there's a better buy in town.
And that's business as usual. That's Slumberland.
In the glamorous world of fashion, every detail has to be just right.
Versailles eyewear is a fashion accessory designed to fit the changing moods of your lifestyle. Whether the look is professional, casual, or sophisticated evening wear, Versailles is a beautifully affordable way to make your total look come to life. Come alive with Versailles, America's most fashionable eyewear. See a leading eye care professional soon and try them on.
This is our attempt to give the American citizen an opportunity to say how they feel about Korean Airlines Flight 007.
The Soviet Aeroflot Airlines has come in over the United States classified areas many, many times, and we've never shot one of them out of the sky.
They're using this kind of a situation to terrorize the whole world.
We have got to show the Soviet Union that the world is not going to take their total disregard for life lightly.
Join us.
Hi, I'm Dan Seaman for the Minneapolis Police Band. The band is having a benefit dance at the Bellray Ballroom on Friday, September 23rd, 9 p.m. until 1 a.m. Ticket price is $3 at the door. Come on out. Have a good time with the Minneapolis Police Band. For more information, call 786-4630. See you there.
Searching the ocean for plump, juicy shrimp is an art all its own. But when those shrimp come to Red Lobster, that's when the real adventure begins. Discover Red Lobster's great shrimp adventure. More shrimp, more ways than anyone.
Discover all we do for the seafood lover in you.
Tastes wonderful.
Tastes so good.
Tried in Shirley's gum gives me the same flavor I've had before in sugared gums.
Taste the one.
I like the flavor. It continues to last.
Taste the one that'll win you over to sugarless gum.
4 out of 5 dentists surveyed recommend sugarless gum for their patients who chew gum.
Tastes good. The flavor lasts a long time, and it won't hurt my teeth.
Taste the one that'll win you over to sugarless gum.
Now, fly free on your ultimate beach vacation the Northwest Orient way. It's easy. Just enter the WLOL Sunkissed Ultimate Orange 3 giveaway, giving you the chance to win a free round trip for 2 to famous beaches all across America on Northwest Orient. Just listen to WLOL 99.5 FM and you could be on your way. Win a Northwest Orient flight to Fort Lauderdale, Miami, LA, San Diego, Tampa, Martha's Vineyard, and Phoenix, too. They're all waiting for you in the WLOL Sunkissed Ultimate Orange 3 giveaway.
Events in this area. The Minnesota Museum of Art is offering fall art classes. For information on the courses, call 292-4367. The Minneapolis Dance Conservatory will be offering a series of dance classes this fall. Call 370-0433. Local artists interested in exhibiting their work may enter the Arts and Crafts Fair by the Dakota Center for the Arts. You could call 457-1220.
Every year about this time, something wonderful happens. Kids everywhere find themselves back at school. McDonald's would like to make the occasion even happier with McDonaldland character pens.